On to the next part of the slide. How are we doing on time? We good?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about governance foundations on how you start wrapping your arms around AI in your organization. I think the first thing we're going to start at is the top of the roles. The Chief Information Security Officer, the Chief AI Officer, risk committees, model owners. Somebody has to be accountable for the AI risk, right? And it should be known that just like the systems exist today, the AI infrastructure, such as protocols, system data, etc., need to be governed, right? They need to be owned by somebody. Owning it by a general committee that's not really invested, there's no real head of this, I think will be a problem. Some of the challenges that I've seen, and this is not a knock on anything, I'm glad that somebody's owning it, but when you have risk committees or AI committees put together, sometimes the people making the decisions don't fully understand the technology. Now, their intent is good, and they're trying. I would highly recommend getting an advisor or bringing somebody, shameless plug like me into the table just to help advise them on some things to do around AI. Moving down the list, you have like frameworks and certifications. So the NIST AI RMF framework we'll talk about. That's the risk management framework. There's the ISO 42001 framework that we're going to cover a little bit here in a minute. There's groups and standards, okay, that are out there trying to formulate and get their hands around how AI should function for all of us. The Frontier Model Forum, the ML Commons, and then we talked about MCP protocols, A to A protocols. We'll cover those here in a minute. It's almost like another presentation.
Well, we're in the second hour, so we're good.
Look at that timing. Yeah.
Nice.
All right. So the whole goal here around governance foundations, and this is true with frameworks, groups, standards, owners, whatever, we're trying to embed accountability, transparency, and trust to do the things we need to do to create the efficiencies in our business while not doing reputational harm, personal harm, ethical harm, all of these things. So let's talk about the AI risk management framework from this. So it's developed through collaborative processes by industries, so civil society, academia, and government. And it's designed to equip organizations and individuals with approaches to increase trustworthiness of AI, help foster responsible design, development, and deployment, okay? So we'll take a look at their steps that they have in the NIST AI RMF. Govern. So policies, process, procedures, practices, all related to the mapping, measuring, and managing of AI, making sure they're in place, transparency, and effectiveness. We go down to map. So mapping really involves the intended purpose, the potential beneficial use cases, the context-specific laws, norms, expectations, all of these things. And if you go to the NIST framework page, it's laid out quite nicely on how to kind of step through this. I'm just kind of trying to give you a little example. Inside the map, it's also got risks across the development lifecycle, product lifecycle, testing, evaluating, system metrics, all of those things. And then in the measure, it's really the appropriate methods to measure that the metrics are measured and they're identified and applied. Let's see if there's anything else on here. So this is a good kind of standard to adhere to as you're going down the AI path. One of the certifications I wanted to talk about was the ISO 42001. So it's an international certification for AI management systems. Its requirements are for establishing, implementing, maintaining, and continually improving AI management systems within organizations. So I believe that Amazon, Microsoft, OpenAI, they're all certified 42001. And there's a bunch of companies that will certify you if you're going to put a system out there for other people to use. Oh yeah, put it in the slide. So Microsoft Copilot, Copilot Chat, Google Cloud, Google Workspace, Amazon, they're all certified in ISO 42001. something to be on the look for if you're going to use a management platform for AI. We have the frontier model form. That is a terrible picture. I'm sorry. It refers to, so they identify, so it's between Amazon, Anthropic, Google, Meta, and Microsoft. They identify best practices, advanced science, and facilitate information sharing in the AI space. As a general purpose for the model, they have to make sure it's been deployed for at least 12 months before they go through it, but it's referred to as the FMF, the Model Frontier Framework. It's a frontier AI model. So it's these organizations coming together to identify those practices and share information with one another, which is nice to see. So you see Anthropic, OpenAI on there. Those are Claude and ChatGPT. Then you have the Microsoft, Google, Meta, Amazon stacks. Then we have the ML Commons, which has a whole bunch of really noticeable logos on there. But they build benchmarks for AI. So they're an open engineering consortium with a mission to make AI better for everyone through benchmarks and data. So this is more collective engineering, and this is between industry and academia. It's continually measured, improving accuracy, speed, safety, all of those things. So looking at see if they're part of the ML Commons might be worthwhile because this isn't even everybody, right? But when you implement their AI in your organization, you'll know that they're at least taking the standards of the ML Commons. Kind of breezing through those. Let's talk about the Model Context Protocol. I love this slide, so I stole it. Yeah.
Repurposed.
Borrowed? Yeah. It's not mine. I can't take credit for it. So this is, I'm going to kind of explain this, but think of the MCP server as a USB hub for all of your AI. Okay. This gets into agent-to-agent leverage and using not an RPA workflow, but rather agent-to-agent communication. Okay. So an MCP server is a tool that allows AI models like Azure, Claude, Gemini to connect with and control external services and data sources by providing specialized functions and APIs. These servers act as intermediaries, enabling AI to perform actions like database operations, browser automation, up-to-date documentation, and extends the AI's capabilities beyond its own code base. So remember the example I gave to you earlier. You create an Anthropic MCP server on your laptop, you go to Claude, you connect it to the MCP server, you say, hey, keep my downloads folder clean. It's going to look in your downloads folder and it's going to see what you use the most, see what you don't, delete the things you want, delete the things you don't, or keep the things you want, keep the things you don't want. But it's a protocol and it's a standard to make information available to large language models. Think of it similarly to an API and how that works, but it offers documented, standardized way for a computer program to integrate with services from external services or sources. So there's really 4 messages used in MCP: requests, results, errors, notifications. There's a whole bunch of standards around here, but the key points I wanted to point out are it does not have authentication, authorization, or encryption built in. So developers need to implement that themselves or use a service that assists with the implementation. MCP does not require HTTPS. Instead, it runs over HTTP in many implementations. Therefore, it can lack encryption authentication unless developers proactively implement TLS. So MCP, like any networking protocol, can be vulnerable to impersonation or on-path attacks if it's not encrypted. I think that's about all I want to say.
TLS.
Transport layer security.
So if I've got a user that's connected, got a corporate ChatGPT account and says connect to my Outlook, it's going to connect by MCP. All those plugins that you can, it's built-in connections.
That's a good question. If the new model is all MCP driven or not. I did look through setting up an Azure MCP and backed out of it because I did not trust that my permissions were granular enough for what I was trying to do.
Uh-huh.
So I backed out of it. But in the Azure world, it's using something like VS Code and installing a plugin and then authorizing to your Azure tenant and then calling functions to do work, like spinning up new servers, spinning down servers, things like that. That is a good question. If that new model uses those, I'm not entirely sure, Steve.
But a good policy would be no MCP without TLS.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or even better yet, without OAuth
Okay.
too. Or both.
Thank you.
So agent to agent protocols, you'll see a lot more of these. These are becoming quite popular. This is in a code first scenario, so using something like PyTorch or Python. Essentially, I'm going to try to explain this, but you discover, negotiate task and state management and collaboration. So in this case, let's say remote agent 1 needs to use remote agent B or 2. So let's say remote agent 2 is a flight booking, and I'll give this example in the next slide too. There's a flight booking, and remote agent 1 is a travel planner, right? Well, we want to book a flight. So agent 1 needs to understand some information input. And then in traditional RPA or workflow or business process, you would bring the results back or tell it to go to agent 2, here are my parameters, those kinds of things. Well, it can run this autonomously to some degree if you've connected and published what's called a card on a URI in a domain for agent 2 that says, here's my name, here's what I do, here's how you authenticate. And it's over JSON RPC via HTTPS. And it can just go book what you need to have done because agent 1 tells it to go book. So this is true autonomy. When you say, I have the ability to use a travel agent to go book a flight, it's going to go agent to agent from the travel agent. You're not telling it to go book a flight or programming it to go book a flight, right? It's making a decision to go book a flight. But you still have to give it the available agents that you want to use, right? But you're not wiring it up. So in this case, so when you take agent to agent with MCP involved, this is kind of what it looks like. And this was taken from Google's page, right? Because I thought this was important to look at. So you have some kind of local agent running. You have some kind of agent AI platform running. You have the ADK for agent development, interacting with MCPs and APIs for enterprise applications. This is a pretty advanced setup. And just so you know, as of June, I think it was June, less than 5% of organizations are at this stage, right? And I think a big part of it is because of the agent reliability and the MCP protocol not being very mature. Is just that's my take on it, right? But this is a world we'll get to where the travel agent A, right? It's a planner agent. It takes the input. It has a tool and it goes to the agent to agent client. And one of the clients that's available for it is the booking agent. And it just gets the card. Hey, I'm this agent. This is what I can do. And then it says, well, I'm going to have you execute on these plans, book the agent with this data, those kinds of things, right? True autonomy without wiring it up through an RPA as an example. That's the direction I believe that things will be heading in some fashion, depending on your organization. The agent to agent is going to be quite big, quite large. There's already every company that you can likely imagine has created some kind of agent to agent card published and agent availability on the internets, right? So it's becoming much bigger. And I believe agent to agent was started with potentially Google and Microsoft, might have been just Google.
And did you mention RCP as an acronym?
Did I?
I must have misheard.
Maybe. I have a lot of acronyms. So. All right, so moving into regulatory compliance pressure. So things like the EU AI Act, they're really big on risk classification, conformity assessments, and incident reporting. And then more US locally, I still have the UK AI Act in there, but you have NIST and then OECD principles, which we'll talk about. So Do I? No, I don't have a slide broken on this, so we're going to sit on the slide for a minute. All right, so the EU AI Act basically has set up rules for AI systems, and they have prohibited applications that they have deemed for harmful uses. And their goal is to have everybody that's creating AI register them with the European Union. The high risk AI agents have stringent requirements and testing that has to be completed before they're allowed to exist. And they have, like I said, a classification of prohibited applications, and they're big on transparency, right? So informing consumers of all AI use that's going on. The AI Security Institute is the first state-backed organization dedicated to advancing the AI goal in the UK. And they conduct research and build infrastructure for the understandings and impact of the advanced AI and development of test and risk mitigations. They're working on wider research, AI developers, working with other governments to learn how AI is developed and shape into global policy making on this issue. So that might be something to look out for. The OECD is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. It's an international organization that works to build better policies for better lives. And so they have policies, data analysis all around AI, trustworthiness in AI. There's a lot of information out there on them if you want to go to their site and look. And really what I'm giving you is that if you have an organization that operates in the UK, you're likely subject to the EU AI Act to some degree, or at least it's worth looking into to see what you need to do to be compliant with what you're doing over there. And then if you're looking for standards and just ethic, all of those things, I think the OECD is a good place to start, along with NIST, those kind of things. I don't think there's much else to talk about there. All right, so controls that matter. So this is why when you ask your question, Steve, that the ability to go secure AI seems like it's too heavy and not worth this, right? If we look at this, most everybody that's in this presentation probably understands all of this, right? So it's not anything new. And as technologists, the only constant we ever have is change, right? So we just have new security controls, new encryption, new protocols to do the same things we've been doing with, and we have to understand how the technology functions and works, right? So encryption, access control, and monitoring are big things. Having a policy, following a framework, setting up your cards if you're going to be using agents that are agent-to-agent frameworks, and audit trails are important. And then operational controls, I think red teaming is going to be a big thing, right? I think there's always been a work out there for people trying to do pen tests and trying to break things, but I could see this being kind of next level, like, hey, we put in this AI infrastructure, this chatbot, tell me what data is exposed, even to internal employees, to ensure the safeguards and the rails are in place.
Try and poison it.
Yeah, try to poison. Making sure you have an incident response, just like you do if a building were to have a problem or data gets leaked externally. Having an AI incident response for that. And then monitoring, post-implementation monitoring.
But all of these are controls with officially sanctioned AI projects. Do these address shadow AI?
To some degree, right? I mean, there's user training that needs to happen, and then there's like, prompt overuse or overdependence on prompting. And I mean, if you put the right controls in place, theoretically, you should have shadow AI.
Yeah, and if they sign a policy that they're not going to circumvent the system, then that's
why when I did this slide, I'm like, you've got to have a policy.
Yeah.
And I would make your policy pretty wide.
rigorous.
Yeah, rigorous. That's the right word. All right, so some roadmap recommendations, right? So here's what I've learned. You really don't know all of when you're designing an AI infrastructure and you're putting it in place, you really don't know what you don't know, which I hate because the statement is like, well, clearly you don't know what you don't know. So my recommendation is to start testing some kind of AI platform that makes a lot of sense for your use cases. Make sure you have some kind of person responsible, whether it's a governance council, have a policy in place, inventory what's being used today, and then start developing what you can use in the future moving forward. I would immediately, within 6 to 12 months, have somebody try to break what you've built. The best place to do that is a sandbox, but if you end up going production with it, fine. That's entirely up to your risk tolerance. I would align with something like NIST or ISO to help prep for the EU Act, EU AI Act. And then long term, I think just AI is going to just become another risk, just like any other risk that we have in a business. I think the bigger thing is because it deals with all the facets and there's still so much ambiguity around AI, like which AI are we using? Does anybody have Python repositories of us? Am I using Perform or Perfect or whatever the AI platform is? Am I using n8n? Is anybody using Copilot? Like understanding, and that's why that first step is to inventory what AI you have today and what data it's touching. This is also a journey. It is not a destination, right? It is maturity over time.